The snow came sideways. It didn't fall. It attacked. Catherine Brennan stood in the kitchen of a rental house that no longer felt like home. The walls were thin. The windows rattled when the wind picked up. The radiators along the baseboards stayed cold and silent because she had made a choice last week between heat and groceries. Groceries won. The children needed to eat more than they needed to be warm. She was 34 years old. She looked 40. Grief does that. Poverty accelerates it. On the kitchen table sat a stack of envelopes. Red letters stamped across the front. Final notice. Past due. Collections. The electric company had given her until Friday. The landlord had stopped knocking and started leaving notes taped to the door. The hospital still wanted payment for Eli's birth 5 months ago. The funeral home called twice a week about the balance on Robert's casket. Catherine had nothing left to give any of them. She stood at the counter, packing sandwiches into plastic bags. Peanut butter because it was cheap. Jelly because the kids would eat it. Her hands moved automatically while her mind did the math she had been doing all morning. 92 miles to Billings, half a tank of gas in the Honda, $214 in her checking account. A job interview tomorrow at 8 in the morning that could change everything or nothing depending on whether she could get there. The phone call had come this morning, her sister Josephine. Josie's voice had been careful and precise, like she was reading from a script she had rehearsed. There's an opening at the medical office where I work, office manager position, full-time, benefits, good pay, real pay, Cat, not the kind that runs out before the month does. The interview is tomorrow morning, 8 sharp. Don't be late. This is your shot. Catherine had said yes before Josie finished talking. She said yes because yes was the only word that mattered anymore. Yes to the interview, yes to the drive, yes to the risk of taking 5 children across a mountain pass in December when the weather could turn without warning. The alternative was staying here. Staying meant eviction in 2 weeks. Staying meant the lights going dark. Staying meant watching her children go hungry while she tried to explain why Mama couldn't fix this. She finished packing the sandwiches and checked the clock. 3 in the afternoon. The weather app on her phone showed clear skies until tomorrow night. The radio had said the same thing that morning. Storm system delayed, safe window for travel. She had checked 3 different sources. They all agreed. She had a window. She was taking it. Behind her a voice spoke, small but steady, the voice of a child who had grown up too fast in the last 8 months. Mama, where are we going? Catherine turned. Her oldest daughter stood in the doorway. Autumn. 11 years old with brown hair that fell past her shoulders and eyes that saw too much. She was wearing the same coat she had worn last winter. It was too small now. The sleeves stopped above her wrists, but it was the warmest one they had. Catherine tried to smile. The expression felt foreign on her face. We're going to see Aunt Josie in Billings. For how long? Catherine's hands stopped moving. Maybe a while, baby. Maybe a good while. She didn't say the rest. She didn't say that Josie had a spare bedroom where 5 children could sleep on mattresses on the floor until Catherine found a place of their own. She didn't say that this job was the difference between surviving and drowning. She didn't say that if she missed this interview, there would not be another chance. Autumn watched her mother with the careful attention of someone learning to read between the lines. She was old enough now to understand the things Catherine didn't say out loud. Old enough to see the stack of red envelopes by the door. Old enough to know that the cold house and the careful meals and the way Mama's hands shook sometimes meant they were running out of time. Can I help pack? Autumn asked. Catherine nodded. Her throat felt tight. Yes, baby. That would help. They worked together in silence. 2 people moving through a ritual they both understood. This was not a vacation. This was not a visit. This was flight disguised as a road trip. This was desperation dressed up as a plan. In the living room, the other children waited. Wyatt sat by the window, 9 years old and silent. He had been a loud child once, full of questions and energy and noise. Then his father died, and something inside him went quiet. Now he sat and stared and counted things. Fence posts when they drove past fields. Cracks in the ceiling at night. The days since the funeral. 243. Catherine knew because she had heard him whisper the number that morning. The twins sat on the couch with a coloring book spread between them. Harper and Quinn. 6 years old and identical. They wore matching braids that Catherine had woven that morning before the sun came up. They shared everything. Toys and clothes and dreams and fear. When one cried, the other cried. When one laughed, the other laughed. They were two halves of the same heart walking around in separate bodies. And in the car seat by the door, baby Eli slept. 5 months old, wrapped in 3 blankets because the house was too cold for thin infant skin. He looked like Robert, the same nose, the same shape to his eyes. Catherine had to look away sometimes because the resemblance hurt too much. Robert had been dead 8 months. A machine malfunctioned at the lumber mill where he worked. The safety guard failed. The blade didn't. The company sent 3 months of salary and a sympathy card with flowers on the front. Catherine used the money to bury him and keep the lights on and feed the children. Now the money was gone and Robert was still dead, and Catherine was alone with 5 children and a stack of bills she could not pay. She finished packing and looked at the clock again. 3:15. The drive would take 2 hours in good weather, maybe 3 in December. They needed to leave now to arrive before dark. Catherine picked up the car keys. She turned to her children. Everyone in the car. Now. They moved like soldiers. Autumn helped the twins with their coats. Wyatt picked up his backpack without being asked. Catherine lifted Eli from the car seat and held him against her chest while she locked the front door. She didn't look back at the house. Looking back meant acknowledging what she was leaving behind. Looking back meant feeling things she couldn't afford to feel right now. The Honda sat in the driveway. 10 years old with rust on the wheel wells and a crack in the windshield that ran from corner to corner. The check engine light had been on for 3 months. Catherine couldn't afford to fix it. She prayed it would hold together for 92 more miles. She buckled Eli into his car seat. The twins climbed into the back and fastened their own seat belts. Wyatt sat by the window and pressed his forehead against the glass. Autumn took the middle seat between her siblings like a sergeant keeping formation. Catherine slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. It turned over on the third try. She checked the gas gauge. Just under half a tank. Enough if she drove careful, enough if nothing went wrong. She pulled out of the driveway and turned onto the highway that would take them west toward Billings, toward Josie's house and the job interview and the future that might save them or might not. The sky was gray but calm. The road stretched ahead, empty and waiting. Catherine kept her hands at 10 and 2. She watched the mile markers pass. She told herself this would work. Behind her in the back seat, Autumn watched the world slide past the window. She saw the way her mother's shoulders stayed tight. She saw the way Mama kept checking the mirrors like she was afraid something was following them. Autumn was 11 years old. She was old enough to know they were running. She just didn't know if they were running towards something or away from something. Maybe both. The first 45 minutes were fine. The road was clear. The traffic was light. The Honda held together. Catherine drove at exactly the speed limit and watched the sky with the careful attention of someone who had learned not to trust good luck. Autumn helped the twins with their coloring books. Quinn drew a house with a red door. Harper drew a dog. They showed each other their pictures and giggled at some private joke only they understood. The sound made Catherine's chest ache. Children should laugh like that all the time, not just in stolen moments between catastrophes. Wyatt stayed silent. He counted fence posts through the window. His lips moved with the numbers, but no sound came out. Catherine watched him in the rearview mirror and wondered when he would speak again. If he would speak again. The grief counselor at the school had said to give him time. Time was all she had been giving him. 8 months of time. It hadn't helped yet. Eli slept in his car seat. His small chest rose and fell in the steady rhythm of infant sleep. Catherine checked on him every few minutes. She watched for the movement. She needed to see him breathing. Mile marker 32 passed, then 33, then 34. The sky changed. It happened fast. The gray ceiling overhead darkened to charcoal, then to black. The light faded like someone had thrown a switch. Catherine's hands tightened on the wheel. The first snowflakes appeared, small and tentative. They drifted down in lazy spirals and melted on the windshield. Catherine turned on the wipers. The blades scraped across the glass with a sound like nails on stone. The snow fell harder, then harder still. Within 10 minutes, the lazy drift became a wall, white everywhere, white above and white below and white filling the space between. The wind hit the car from the side. The Honda shuddered and pushed toward the shoulder. Catherine gripped the wheel with both hands and fought to keep them straight. She slowed down, 20 miles an hour, then 15, then 10. The world disappeared. There were no other cars, no trucks, no signs, no lines on the road. Just white and more white, and the terrible sound of the wind screaming past the windows. In the back seat, Autumn leaned forward. "Mama, should we stop?" Catherine shook her head. Her eyes stayed fixed on the space ahead, where the road should be. "There's nothing behind us, baby. We have to keep going." She meant the words in more than one way. Behind them was the rental house they would lose by the end of the month. Behind them was a town with no jobs and no future. Behind them was a grave with a headstone Catherine couldn't afford to replace. Behind them was nothing but failure and loss and the slow death of giving up. She couldn't go back. At mile marker 47, the car made a sound like something dying. It started as a grinding noise deep in the engine, metal on metal, something vital giving way. Then the dashboard lit up, engine light, battery light, temperature gauge climbing into the red. Every warning the car could give all at once. Then nothing. The engine died. The power steering went. The dashboard went dark. The Honda became a 2-ton piece of metal coasting on momentum alone. Catherine pulled to the side of the road. Or what she thought was the side of the road. She couldn't see the lines anymore. She couldn't see anything. She just aimed right and hoped. The car stopped. Catherine turned the key. The engine clicked, but didn't turn over. She tried again. Nothing. A third time, a fourth. The clicking sound became the only noise in the world besides the wind. Her hands started to shake. She pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen showed one bar of signal, then none, then one again, flickering, unreliable. She tried to call Josie. The call failed. She tried again, failed again. No signal, no help, no way forward and no way back. Catherine sat in the driver's seat and felt the cold start to seep through the doors. The heater had died with the engine. Within minutes, the temperature inside the wall began to drop. Autumn's voice came from the back seat, quiet but steady. "Mama, what do we do?" Catherine looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror. Autumn's face was pale but calm, waiting, trusting, believing that Mama had a plan. Catherine made a decision. She had seen a sign a few miles back. Blue and white, official. Rest stop ahead. 5 miles. If they stayed in the car, they would freeze. The temperature was dropping. The storm was getting worse. But 5 miles, that was walkable. She had walked farther than that before. She turned in her seat to face her children. "We're going to walk." Wyatt's head turned, his eyes widened, the first expression she had seen on his face in days. Autumn frowned. "Walk where? There's a rest stop 5 miles ahead. We can make it if we go now." Autumn looked at the windows, at the white wall beyond the glass, at the storm that had swallowed the world. "Mom, I don't think," Catherine cut her off. Her voice came out harder than she meant it to. "We don't have a choice, Autumn. We can't stay here. We'll freeze." The car went silent. Catherine grabbed the blankets from the trunk. She wrapped them around the children's shoulders like cloaks. She pulled Eli from his car seat and tucked him inside her jacket against her chest. She zipped the jacket as far as it would go. She could feel his small body pressed against her heartbeat. She opened the driver's side door. The wind hit her like a fist. It stole the breath from her lungs and the warmth from her skin in the space between seconds. Snow filled her eyes and mouth. She gasped and stumbled and caught herself against the car. This was worse than she thought. Much worse. But there was no going back now. She pulled Autumn out first, then Wyatt, then the twins. They formed a line. Catherine took Harper's hand. Harper took Quinn's. Quinn took Wyatt's. Wyatt held onto the back of Autumn's coat. A chain of children connected by desperation and cold. Catherine looked down the highway. The rest stop sign had said 5 miles. 5 miles on a clear day. 5 miles with no storm and no children and no baby strapped to her chest. She started walking. The storm was a living thing. It didn't just blow. It attacked. The wind came in gusts that knocked Catherine sideways. The snow didn't fall in flakes anymore. It came in sheets, horizontal, razor sharp. It cut at her face and hands and found every gap in her coat. She walked with her head down and her shoulders hunched, one foot in front of the other, again and again. The children walked behind her in their chain. Their small legs struggled to keep up, their small bodies bent against the wind. Catherine counted steps. 100, 200, 500. She lost count. She started again. 1, 2, 3. Time became meaningless. She didn't know if they had been walking 10 minutes or an hour. The world was white and cold and endless. Eli moved against her chest, small squirms, tiny protests. He was cold. She was cold. They were all cold. Behind her, she heard one of the twins crying. The sound was small and lost in the wind. Catherine wanted to stop and comfort her. She couldn't stop. Stopping meant dying. Keep walking, she called back. Her voice barely carried over the storm. We're almost there. It was a lie. She had no idea how far they had come or how far they had left to go. She couldn't see the road. She couldn't see anything 10 feet ahead. She was navigating by faith and desperation. An hour passed, maybe two. Catherine's legs began to tremble. Her muscles burned. Her lungs felt frozen. Every breath hurt. She kept walking. The twins stopped crying. That was bad. Catherine knew that was bad. Crying meant they were still fighting. Silence meant they were giving up. Mama. Autumn's voice cut through the wind. Weak but audible. Catherine didn't turn around. Keep going, baby. Mama, we have to rest. We can't rest. Mama, please. Catherine stopped. She turned. The children stood in a cluster behind her. Their faces were pale. Their lips had a blue tint around the edges. Snow caked their hair and coats. They looked like small ghosts. Wyatt swayed on his feet. His eyes were unfocused. Catherine's heart dropped into her stomach. She knelt in the snow and pulled them close. She wrapped her arms around as many as she could hold. She felt how cold they were, how their bodies shook, how their breathing had gone shallow. They were losing. The cold was winning. Catherine closed her eyes. She tried to think, tried to plan, but her mind felt slow, thick. The hypothermia was taking her too. Eli moved inside her jacket, a small flutter against her chest. Then nothing. Catherine pressed her hand against his small body through the layers of fabric. Please, she thought. Please still be there. Please still be alive. He moved again. Barely. Just enough to let her know he was still fighting. Catherine opened her eyes. She looked at her children, at Autumn trying to be brave, at Wyatt staring at nothing, at the twins holding each other, at the shape of Eli hidden inside her coat. She couldn't let them die. She couldn't lose them. Not after everything. Not after Robert and the bills and the months of barely holding on. Not after coming this far. She had to keep moving. Catherine tried to stand. Her legs wouldn't obey. She pushed harder. Her muscles screamed. She got halfway up and fell back down. She tried again. Her body refused. No, she thought. No, not yet. Not when we're so close. But they weren't close. She knew that now. The sign had been wrong. What miles was really 10 or 12 or 20? They had been walking for hours and the rest stop had never appeared. They were going to die here. Catherine felt her body start to shut down. The cold was taking her piece by piece. First her fingers, then her toes, then her legs. Soon it would take her core, her heart, her lungs. She stopped fighting. She pulled the children against her and let her body fold around them. If they were going to die, they would die together. Warm against each other, a family to the end. The snow fell on them like a burial. Catherine closed her eyes. She whispered to her children, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Autumn's small hand touched her face. Mama, someone's coming. Catherine opened her eyes. She thought she was hallucinating. The hypothermia playing tricks, showing her what she wanted to see instead of what was real. But the sound was there. Engines, low and heavy, getting closer, then lights, cutting through the white darkness. 2 beams, then 4, then 8. A convoy, motorcycles. Catherine's heart should have lifted. Hope should have flooded her chest, but all she felt was terror. Bikers, on a mountain highway in a blizzard. She had heard stories about men like this, outlaws, criminals, dangerous people who did dangerous things. Men who hurt women and children. Men you crossed the street to avoid. Men who wore leather and patches and carried violence in their pockets. But her children were freezing. Her baby might already be dead. She had no choices left. The lead motorcycle's brake lights glowed red against the snow. The convoy slowed, stopped. The engines idled. A deep rumble like thunder trapped in a bottle. A massive figure swung off the lead bike. He pulled off his helmet. The cold hit his face and he didn't flinch. His beard was already filling with ice. He was tall, maybe 6'4", built like something carved from stone. His leather jacket was covered in patches. Iron wolves. Montana chapter. His eyes found Catherine. Then the children. Then the shape of the baby inside her jacket. The man started walking toward them, his boots crunched in the snow, each step deliberate, unstoppable. Catherine should have run. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to grab her children and run. But her legs wouldn't move. Her body had nothing left. The man stopped 3 feet away. He looked down at her. His face was weathered and scarred. His eyes were gray like winter sky. Catherine waited for him to speak, to demand something, to threaten, to take. He spoke 2 words, just 2. Come with me. His voice was deep, rough, but not cruel, not angry. Catherine's legs buckled. The last reserves of strength gave out. She fell forward. The man caught her, his massive arms wrapped around her and Eli both. He held them against his chest. Catherine felt the solidity of him, the warmth, the way his heart beat steady and sure beneath the leather. And in that moment, pressed against a stranger who looked like every nightmare she had been taught to fear, Catherine felt something she hadn't felt in 8 months. She felt safe. Declan McAllister had been called Grizzly for so long, he barely remembered his real name anymore. The nickname came from his size, 6'4" and 260 pounds, shoulders like a linebacker, hands that could palm a basketball, a beard that grew thick and wild no matter how often he trimmed it. But the name stuck for another reason too. Because grizzly bears were protectors. Because they fought like hell when something they loved was threatened. Because they were dangerous to everything except the cubs they guarded. Grizzly had been a protector once. He failed. 6 years ago, Christmas Eve, his daughter Scarlett in the backseat of the family car, his wife Joanna driving, Grizzly following behind them on his motorcycle because he never could stand being cooped up in a car for long drives. They were going to Joanna's mother's house. Scarlett was 9 years old. She had been singing along to the radio, some pop song about snowflakes and wishes. Her voice carried through the open window, high and clear and full of joy. Then the drunk driver crossed the median. Grizzly saw the headlights swerve. He saw the moment the other driver lost control. He saw the impact. He heard it. Metal on metal, glass shattering. The scream of brakes that came too late. He was off his bike before the car stopped spinning. He ran. He reached the passenger side where Scarlett sat. The door was crumpled. He tore it open with his bare hands. His daughter's eyes were open. She looked at him with confusion. "Daddy," her voice was so small. Grizzly held her hand. He told her she was going to be okay. He told her help was coming. He told her to hold on. She held on for 6 minutes. Then her hand went slack in his. Then her eyes stopped seeing him. Then she was gone and Grizzly was still there holding the body of the only person in the world who made him want to be better than he was. The ambulance arrived. The paramedics worked on her anyway. They tried. But Grizzly knew. He had known from the moment her hand went limp. Some things you can't come back from. Joanna survived the crash with a broken collarbone and 3 cracked ribs. She looked at Grizzly in the hospital, and something between them broke that no doctor could fix. She didn't blame him. She never said the words out loud, but they both knew. He had been right there, riding behind them, close enough to see, not close enough to stop it. They stayed together for a year, trying to hold on to something that was already gone. Then Joanna left. She moved to Oregon, started over, married someone else, someone who didn't remind her every day of the daughter they buried. Grizzly stayed in Clearwater. He bought a garage, fixed motorcycles, rode with the Iron Wolves. The club had started as a group of veterans and working men who wanted brotherhood without the blood. They rode for charity, escorted funerals, delivered toys to foster kids at Christmas. They were not outlaws. They were not criminals. They were just men who needed something to belong to. But the world saw the leather and the patches and the motorcycles and made assumptions. Grizzly had learned to live with those assumptions. He stopped trying to change minds a long time ago. For 6 years, he had been going through the motions. Working, writing, breathing, existing. Not living, just existing. Every December 19th, he woke up knowing what tomorrow was. The anniversary. The day his daughter died and his life ended, and he kept walking around anyway like some kind of ghost. This morning had been no different. He woke in the garage apartment above his shop. He looked at the calendar on the wall. December 20th, circled in red marker. 6 years. The Iron Wolves had a toy drive planned in Helena. They did it every year, delivered presents to kids in group homes and foster care. Grizzly usually helped organize it. He usually drove the van. He usually smiled and handed out gifts and pretended to be okay. This year he couldn't. He had called Axel that morning and canceled. Made up some excuse about work at the shop. Axel had seen through it immediately. Brennan Hayes, everyone called him Axel because he could fix anything with an engine. He had been a medic in the Gulf War, came home and couldn't find work that didn't remind him of blood and desert sand and boys too young to die. He found the Iron Wolves 10 years ago, found brothers who understood what it meant to carry things you couldn't put down. Axel had shown up at Grizzly's garage at noon. "You're not doing this again," he said. "Doing what sitting here alone on Scarlet's Day, drowning in it." Grizzly had turned away. "I'm fine." "No, you're not. You haven't been fine in 6 years, and you won't get fine by hiding." "I'm not hiding." "Then come with us. Do the toy drive. See some kids smile. Remember why we do this." Grizzly shook his head. "I can't look at kids today, Axel. I just can't." Axel was quiet for a long moment. Then he put his hand on Grizzly's shoulder. "All right, then we ride after, just the club. We'll head home and you can ride it out. But you don't sit here alone. Deal?" Grizzly didn't have the energy to argue. Deal. So they went to Helena. They delivered the toys. Grizzly stayed in the van and handled logistics. He didn't look at the kids' faces. He didn't watch them open the presents. He just focused on the inventory list and the schedule and getting through the next hour. The drive home started at 4 in the afternoon. 8 riders, 8 bikes, formation tight, Grizzly in front, Axel behind him, the others falling in line. The weather report had said the storm wouldn't hit until tomorrow night. The radar had been clear. They should have been home by 6. Then the sky broke open. The snow came fast and mean. Within minutes, visibility dropped to nothing. The temperature fell like a stone. The wind tried to push them off the road. Grizzly slowed the convoy to 15 miles an hour. Then 10. They navigated by instinct and faith and the faint memory of a road they had ridden 100 times before. At mile marker 53, Axel flashed his headlight. Once. Twice. His gloved hand pointed to the right side of the highway. Grizzly turned his head. Through the white wall of snow, he saw shapes, dark figures against the endless white. A woman, standing still, hunched over, her back to the wind, 5 small figures pressed against her body. Grizzly's brain tried to make sense of what his eyes were showing him. Why was someone standing in the middle of a blizzard? Why weren't they moving? Then he understood. They weren't moving because they couldn't move anymore. They were dying, standing up, freezing in place. Grizzly hit his brakes. The bike slowed. His brother slowed behind him. The formation stopped. Grizzly pulled off his helmet. The cold hit his face like a slap. Ice formed in his beard. The wind screamed in his ears, but he could see her now. The woman, her face pale, her eyes wide. One small child standing in front of her. A girl maybe 11 years old, brown hair whipping in the wind, looking at the bikers with an expression Grizzly recognized. Terror and hope mixed together. Fear of strangers and desperation for help fighting a war in her eyes. The girl's face, Scarlett's face. The same age, the same fear. The same moment of deciding whether to trust or run. Grizzly's hands started shaking. For 6 years, he had carried the weight of his daughter's death. For 6 years, he had asked why he survived when she didn't. For 6 years, he had wondered what possible reason the universe could have for leaving him here. Now he knew. His boots hit the snow. He walked toward the woman and her children. The wind pushed against him. He pushed back. Catherine Brennan watched this massive stranger approach. She saw the leather jacket, the patches, the size of him, the way he moved through the storm like it was nothing. She saw everything her mother had warned her about, but her children were dying. Her baby hadn't moved. She had no choices left. Grizzly stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see her face, far enough to not crowd her. He saw her fear. He saw the calculations running behind her eyes. Trust or die, those were her options. He saw the moment she chose. Grizzly spoke. 2 words. The only words that mattered. Come with me. Catherine's legs gave out. She fell forward. Grizzly caught her before she hit the ground. His arms wrapped around her and the baby both. He felt the small shape press between them. Felt it move. Barely. A flutter of life wrapped in frozen cloth. Still alive. Barely, but still. Grizzly looked back at his brothers. 7 men climbing off their bikes, moving toward the children. No hesitation, no questions, just action. Axel was already pulling his trauma kit from his saddlebag. Sterling and Ridge were stripping off their jackets to wrap around small shoulders. Flint knelt in front of the silent boy. Gunnar lifted one of the twins like she weighed nothing. They formed a wall around the family, 8 men standing between 5 children in the white death trying to take them. This was what the Iron Wolves did. This was what they had always done. They protected, even when it cost them, even when the world looked at their leather and their patches and their motorcycles and saw monsters. They protected anyway. Grizzly held Catherine against his chest. He felt her body shaking. He felt the baby move again. Small, but present. Fighting. He looked down at the woman in his arms, at the exhaustion and terror and surrender on her face. You're safe now, he said. Your children are safe. We've got you. Catherine's eyes closed. Her body went limp, the last of her strength finally giving out. Grizzly held her. He would hold her for as long as it took. Behind him, Axel knelt in the snow beside the 11-year-old girl. He pulled an emergency blanket from his kit. Silver and thin, he wrapped it around her shoulders. What's your name, he asked. Autumn. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Autumn, I'm going to check on your brother and sisters. Is that okay? She nodded. Axel moved to the boy. Wyatt, 9 years old and silent. His skin had a gray tint. His eyes were unfocused. No shivering. That was the worst sign. When the body stopped shivering, it meant the cold had gone deep. Axel wrapped him in blankets and pulled him close. Body heat, direct contact. It was all they had out here. The twins stood together, Harper and Quinn, 6 years old and terrified. Ridge and Gunnar knelt beside them. They spoke in low voices, calm, steady, trying to keep the girls from panicking. Grizzly still held Catherine. He checked the baby inside her jacket. The infant's face was pale, but his chest moved. Shallow breaths. Too shallow, but breathing. 30 minutes, Axel said. He had moved to Grizzly's side. His voice was quiet enough that only Grizzly could hear. Maybe less. The baby's core temp is too low. We need heat, and we need it now. Grizzly pulled his radio. The 2 riders he had sent ahead should have reached something by now. Ridge report. Static. Then a voice breaking through. Motel 3 miles up. Mountain Haven. Closed for the season, but the owner lives next door. Dodge is waking him up now. 3 miles. 3 miles in clear weather meant nothing. 3 miles in a blizzard meant everything. Grizzly pulled the radio again. Flint, anything behind us? Another crackle. Roads empty. Grizz. Storm shut everything down. No vehicles moving. Grizzly looked at his brothers. At the children wrapped in blankets and leather. At the mother unconscious in his arms. At the baby fighting to stay alive. They couldn't wait. They couldn't stay here. In 30 minutes, the baby would be gone. In an hour, maybe the boy too. They had to move. Grizzly made a decision. It was dangerous. It was insane, but staying here meant death for everyone. We carry them, he said. The other riders looked at him. Flint spoke. His voice was tight. That's suicide, Grizz. You can't carry kids on bikes in this. The wind will throw us. The ice will kill us. We'll all die, maybe. But if we stay here, they die for sure. So we carry them. Flint shook his head. I have kids at home, man. My kids need their father alive. Then you ride home, Grizzly said. His voice was flat. No judgment, no anger. Just fact. I'm not leaving them. Silence. The wind screamed. The snow fell. Axel stepped forward. His voice cut through the storm. We all go, or none of us go. He looked at Flint. We're brothers. We ride together. That means all of us, every time. Flint's jaw worked. His hands clenched. Then he looked down at the boy wrapped in blankets at his feet. Wyatt, silent and gray and dying. Flint closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had changed. All right, he knelt beside Wyatt. All right, brother, I got you. Grizzly felt something shift in his chest. Pride, gratitude, love for these men who would risk everything for strangers. Load them up, he said. They moved fast, efficient. Each rider took a child. Axel lifted Autumn, wrapped her in his jacket, positioned her on the seat behind him. Hold tight, he said. Don't let go no matter what. Ridge took Harper. Gunner took Quinn. The twins cried as they were separated, first time in their lives apart. Ridge and Gunner positioned their bikes close together, close enough for the girls to see each other's taillights. Flint picked up Wyatt. The boy was limp, barely conscious. Flint held him against his chest and climbed onto his bike. He wrapped his arms around the boy and the handlebars both. Grizzly looked at Catherine, still unconscious, still holding the baby inside her jacket. He climbed onto his bike with her in his arms. He positioned her in front of him, pressed her back against his chest, the baby between them. He wrapped his jacket around them both and zipped it as far as it would go. He could feel both heartbeats now. Mother and child, weak but present. He looked at his brothers, 8 riders, 5 children, 1 mother, 1 baby, 1 chance. Grizzly gave the signal. 8 engines roared to life. The sound cut through the wind like a knife. The convoy moved forward, slow, careful. 15 miles an hour. Any faster and the tires would lose the road. Any slower and the cold would win. Grizzly led, one hand on the throttle, his other arm locked around Catherine and Eli, holding them in place, his body blocking the wind. Behind him his brothers followed. Axel with Autumn, Flint with Wyatt, Ridge and Gunner with the twins, Sterling and Dodge, and Rusty bringing up the rear. They rode into the white darkness, into the storm that wanted to kill them all. But they rode together, and together they would make it. Or they would die trying. The world became motion and cold, and the sound of engines fighting wind. Catherine drifted between consciousness and nothing. Her body pressed against something solid, warm. A heartbeat that wasn't hers drummed against her back. Strong arms held her in place. The vibration of the motorcycle traveled through her frozen limbs. She tried to open her eyes. The effort felt impossible. Her eyelids were lead. Her thoughts moved like honey in winter. Slow, thick, disconnected. Where was she? Who was holding her? Memory came in fragments. The car dying, the walk through snow, the children, 5 children, her children. Panic shot through her chest, her eyes opened. White, everything white, snow rushing past in horizontal sheets, wind screaming, the world reduced to movement and cold, and the terrible knowledge that they were moving through something that wanted them dead. Catherine tried to move, tried to turn, to see her children. The arms around her tightened. A voice spoke close to her ear, deep, steady, cutting through the wind. Don't move, I got you. Your baby's between us. He's still fighting. You stay still. Catherine felt a small shape pressed against her chest, felt a faint movement. Eli, baby Eli, still alive, still breathing. She tried to speak. Her lips wouldn't form words. The cold had taken her voice. The motorcycle hit something. Ice, maybe. The bike slipped sideways. Catherine felt them sliding. Her heart stopped. They were going to crash. They were going to... But the man holding her didn't panic. He leaned, shifted his weight, fought the slide with pure strength and experience. The bike straightened, found traction, kept moving. Catherine's heart started again. The man's voice came again, low, not speaking to her, speaking to himself or to God. She couldn't tell which. Not these kids. Please, not these kids. I couldn't save her, but let me save them. Please. Catherine heard the prayer, heard the pain beneath the words. This stranger fighting harder for her children than anyone had fought for them in 8 months. She wanted to thank him, wanted to ask his name, wanted to understand why he had stopped when the world taught people to drive past. But her body had nothing left. The cold was stealing her again, piece by piece. Her eyes closed. She surrendered to the darkness and the heartbeat against her back and the arms that wouldn't let her fall. Autumn pressed her face against the leather jacket of the man called Axel. The material was cold and wet, but beneath the cold was warmth, body heat radiating through the fabric. The first warmth she had felt in hours. The motorcycle moved beneath her, steady despite the wind. The engine's rumble vibrated through her small body. She held on with everything she had, her arms wrapped around the man's waist, her fingers locked together. Don't let go. He had said that. Don't let go no matter what. She wouldn't let go, even when the wind tried to pry her loose, even when the snow hit her face like frozen needles, even when the bike slipped on ice and her stomach dropped and she thought, this is it, this is where we die. She held on. Axel's voice carried back to her, muffled by his helmet in the wind but audible. My granddaughter is about your age. Her name's Isabel. She loves hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. When we get where we're going, I bet they'll have some. You like hot chocolate? Autumn didn't answer, couldn't answer. But she heard him, and hearing his voice helped, made the fear a little smaller, made the cold a little less. He kept talking, not waiting for responses, just filling the void with words. She's got brown hair like yours, smart as a whip, too smart sometimes. Ask questions I don't know how to answer. Last week she asked me why the sky is blue. I told her because God ran out of other colors. She said, that's not science, Grandpa. That's just you being lazy. Autumn almost smiled, almost. The bike hit another patch of ice, slipped left. Axel corrected. Straightened them out, kept moving. Isabel wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. She brings home every stray cat in the neighborhood. Drives her mama crazy. But she's got a good heart, like you, I bet. Taking care of your brothers and sisters the way you do. Autumn's grip tightened. How did he know she took care of them? They had been on that road for maybe 10 minutes before the bikers found them. How could he see that? But he was right. She did take care of them. Someone had to. Mama tried. Mama did her best. But Mama was drowning and Autumn had learned to swim young. The wind shifted, came at them from the right. The bike fought to stay straight. Axel leaned into it. His body became a wall between Autumn and the worst of the storm. Almost there, he said. Just a little further. You're doing great. Just hold on a little longer. Autumn held on. Behind them, her siblings rode on other motorcycles with other strangers. She couldn't see them. Could barely see 3 feet ahead through the snow. But she had to trust they were there. Had to trust these men were keeping them safe. She thought about her father. About Robert. About the way he used to carry her on his shoulders when she was small. The way he made her feel safe just by being present. The way the world felt smaller and manageable when he was alive. These men weren't her father. They would never be her father. But right now, in this moment, they were keeping her alive. They were carrying her through hell because they chose to stop. That meant something. That meant everything. Wyatt couldn't feel his hands anymore. Or his feet. Or most of his face. The cold had gone deep. Deeper than skin. Deeper than muscle. It had reached somewhere inside him that felt vital, core. The place where warmth lived. The cold had found it and was slowly putting it out like a candle flame dying in wind. He knew he should be scared, should be fighting, but he felt nothing, just empty, distant, like he was watching someone else's body shut down from far away. The motorcycle moved beneath him. The man holding him was large, strong. Wyatt could feel the muscles in the man's arms, could feel the way he gripped both the boy and the handlebars, protecting and steering at the same time. The man spoke. His voice was rough, uncertain, like he wasn't used to talking to children. I got a son about your age. Haven't seen him in 2 years. Divorce. His mother moved to California. She says I can visit, but it never works out. Work or money or something. Always something. Wyatt listened without responding. He hadn't spoken much since his father died. Words felt pointless. They didn't bring anyone back. They didn't fix anything. So why bother? His name's Connor. My son. He likes baseball. Used to pitch. Had a hell of an arm for a 7-year-old. Don't know if he still plays. His mama doesn't tell me much. The motorcycle slipped. Wyatt felt them sliding. Felt gravity pulling them sideways towards something dark beyond the edge of the road. His heart should have raced. Should have panicked. But it just beat slow and steady like it was already giving up. The man cursed, fought the bike, leaned hard. The tires caught. They straightened. The man let out a breath. Wyatt felt it against the top of his head. Jesus, that was close. They kept moving. I miss him, my son, miss him every day. But I messed up the marriage and I'm paying for it. She won't let me near him now, says I'm a bad influence, says the motorcycle club is dangerous. She doesn't understand. The club is the only thing that kept me sane after she left. Wyatt understood that, understood needing something to hold on to when everything else fell apart. After his father died, Wyatt had started counting things. Fence posts, ceiling cracks, days. Numbers were solid. Numbers didn't lie. Numbers didn't leave. The man's arms tightened around him. But right now, holding you, I'm thinking maybe she was right. Maybe this is crazy. Carrying kids through a blizzard on motorcycles. Maybe I should be home. Safe. Not risking my life for strangers. Wyatt felt the words, felt the doubt in them, felt the man questioning everything. But then I think about you, about your face when we found you. That look, like you had given up, like you were just waiting for it to be over. The man's voice changed, got harder, more certain. I can't let that happen. Can't let a kid that age just give up and die. So yeah, maybe this is crazy, but crazy's better than doing nothing. Wyatt wanted to say thank you, wanted to tell this stranger that he hadn't given up. Not completely. There was still a small part of him that wanted to live, wanted to see tomorrow, wanted to make his father proud somehow, even though his father was gone. But the words stayed locked inside, where they had been for 8 months. The man kept riding, kept holding him, kept fighting the storm, and Wyatt held on. His cold hands gripped the man's jacket. His silent mouth stayed closed. But somewhere deep inside, where the cold hadn't reached yet, something small flickered. Hope, maybe. Or just the stubborn refusal to let the world win. Harper and Quinn rode on separate motorcycles for the first time in their lives. Harper's eyes stayed fixed on the red taillight ahead. That was Quinn. That small red glow in the white chaos was her sister, her twin, her other half. The man carrying her had positioned his bike close enough that Harper could see the outline of the other motorcycle, could see Quinn's small shape wrapped in blankets and leather, could see proof that her sister was still there, still alive. If she lost sight of that red light, Harper thought she might disappear too. Like the connection between them could only survive if they could see each other. The wind howled. The snow came in sheets. The motorcycle shook and fought and kept moving. The man holding her was massive. His arms were like tree trunks. Harper felt small and fragile pressed against his chest. He spoke. His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone so large. "You see your sister up there? See that red light?" Harper nodded, the movement barely visible. "Good. Keep watching it. Long as you can see that light, you know she's okay. And she can see my light behind her. So she knows you're okay too." Harper's eyes didn't leave the red glow. "My name's Ridge. I got a little girl too. She's 8. Her name's Morgan. She's afraid of the dark. Every night I have to check her closet for monsters before she'll go to sleep." Harper wanted to say she was afraid of the dark too. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of losing Quinn the way they had lost their father. I tell her there's no such thing as monsters, but she doesn't believe me. So I check anyway. Look under the bed, inside the closet, behind the door, and you know what I find? Harper waited. Nothing. Every single time. Nothing, because the monsters aren't real. But her fear is real. So I check anyway. Because that's what you do for people you love. You help them be brave even when they're scared. The motorcycle hit a bump. Harper's stomach lurched. She gripped tighter. "You're being real brave right now, riding through this storm, trusting a stranger. That takes guts." Harper didn't feel brave. She felt terrified. But maybe brave and terrified looked the same from the outside. The red light ahead wavered, disappeared for a second behind a wall of snow. Harper's heart stopped. Then it reappeared. Quinn was still there. Harper let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "That's it," Ridge said. "Keep watching that light. We're almost there, just a little more." Harper watched. She didn't look away. Didn't blink. That red light was her sister, and her sister was her whole world. And as long as she could see it, they were both still alive. Quinn couldn't stop shaking. The cold had found every part of her fingers, her toes, her nose, her ears. She shook so hard her teeth chattered. The sound mixed with the motorcycle engine and the wind and created a rhythm of misery. The man carrying her felt it, the shaking. He pulled her closer, wrapped his jacket tighter around her small body, trying to share warmth that was already scarce. His voice was deep, rumbling. She felt it more than heard it. I know you're cold, little one. I know, but that shaking is good. Means your body is fighting. You keep fighting. Okay, Quinn wanted to stop shaking, wanted to be still and calm like Mama, but her body wouldn't obey. It shook without permission. Violent tremors that hurt her muscles and made everything worse. My name's Gunnar. I got 3 daughters, teenagers now. They think they're too old to hug their old man anymore. But sometimes I catch them. When they're not expecting it, I grab them and squeeze, and they yell at me to let go, but they're smiling. They don't mind really. Quinn thought about hugging Mama, about the way Mama's arms felt safe, about how Mama always smelled like soap and vanilla, even when everything else was falling apart. Was Mama okay? Quinn couldn't see her, couldn't see any of her family except Harper's shape on the motorcycle ahead. Were they all still together, or had the storm separated them forever? You got a twin? Yeah, Gunnar asked. The girl on Ridge's bike ahead, Quinn tried to nod. The movement was small. Twins are special. My girls, they fight like cats and dogs. But your twin, that's different. That's like having a piece of yourself walking around outside your body. You two probably got a language nobody else understands. Probably finish each other's sentences and stuff. That was true. Quinn and Harper had their own language. Words that meant nothing to anyone else but everything to them. Looks that communicated whole conversations. They knew when the other was hot or scared or happy without asking. Right now, Quinn knew Harper was terrified. Knew she was watching Quinn's bike like her life depended on it. Knew Harper wouldn't look away until they stopped. Quinn tried to send a message back through the space between them. I'm okay. I'm still here. Don't be scared. She didn't know if Harper could feel it, but she sent it anyway. Almost there, Gunnar said. Few more minutes. You're doing great. Your mama would be real proud of how brave you're being. Quinn wasn't sure about that. Mama was always proud of her, even when she did nothing special, even when she was just existing. That's what mamas did. They loved you no matter what. But maybe Gunnar was right. Maybe this counted as brave. Maybe just surviving was enough. The motorcycle's engine changed pitch, slowed slightly. Quinn felt them turning. She closed her eyes and held on and hoped that when she opened them again, this nightmare would be over. Grizzly counted seconds. 22 minutes since they started riding. 22 minutes of ice and wind and the constant calculation of risk versus reward. Every gust of wind that pushed his bike toward the edge. Every patch of black ice invisible beneath the snow. Every second the baby pressed against his chest didn't move. He felt Catherine's weight against him. Unconscious. Her body had surrendered to the hypothermia. Only the core remained, the heart still beating, the lungs still pulling breath. But she was close to the edge, close to the point where the body just stopped. And the baby, Eli, so small, so fragile. Grizzly could barely feel him breathing. The tiny chest rose and fell in irregular patterns, sometimes stopping for seconds at a time before gasping back to life. 30 minutes, Axel had said, maybe less. They were at 22 minutes now, maybe 23. Time felt slippery, unreliable. Grizzly's hands were frozen to the handlebars. His fingers had lost feeling 10 minutes ago. He controlled the throttle by memory, by muscle, by sheer will. His face was ice. His beard had frozen solid. Icicles hung from the frozen hair. His eyes burned. Tears froze on his cheeks before they could fall. But he didn't blink. Blinking meant losing sight of the road. Losing sight meant death. Behind him, his brothers followed. 8 bikes moving in formation. 8 lives depending on his ability to navigate through nothing. Through white and more white and the terrible absence of landmarks. Grizzly prayed. He had stopped praying 6 years ago, stopped believing God heard him or cared. But now the words came back unbidden. Automatic, desperate. Please, not these kids. I couldn't save Scarlett. I couldn't protect my own daughter. But let me save these, please. Give me this one thing. Let me have this. The road curved. Grizzly felt it more than saw it. The way the wind hit from a different angle. The way the world tilted slightly. He leaned into the curve. Trusted his instincts. The bike followed the invisible road beneath the snow. Catherine stirred against him. A small sound escaped her lips. Confusion. Fear. He felt her trying to move. Don't move, he said. His voice was rough from cold and wind. I got you. Your baby's between us. He's still fighting. You stay still. She went limp again. Not unconscious, just surrendered, trusting a stranger to carry her because she had no other choice. Grizzly felt the weight of that trust, felt the responsibility of it. These were not his children. This was not his family. But right now, in this moment, they were his to protect, his to save or fail. He would not fail, not again. Through the white wall ahead, a shape appeared. Faint, barely visible. But there, a building, a sign hanging crooked on a post, letters missing, faded paint, M. Intain H. Ven, Mountain Haven Motel. Grizzly's chest loosened. They had made it, somehow. Against every odd, they had made it. He flashed his lights. The signal for his brothers. Destination ahead. Slow down. Prepare to stop. The convoy reduced speed. 8 motorcycles rolling into the parking lot of a closed motel in the middle of nowhere. 8 riders covered in ice and snow. 8 pieces of cargo more precious than anything they had carried before. Grizzly saw Ridge and Dodge standing by an open door. Light spilled from inside. Yellow. Warm. The most beautiful color Grizzly had ever seen. An old man stood beside them. White hair, weathered face, suspicion in his eyes as he watched the motorcycles approach. Grizzly pulled to a stop. His hands wouldn't release the handlebars. His fingers had frozen around the grips. He had to pry them loose one by one. The pain was extraordinary, like fire and ice at the same time. He climbed off the bike. His legs almost gave out. They had been locked in position for 22 minutes. The muscles screamed. He caught himself against the seat. Then he reached for Catherine, lifted her, the baby between them. Her head lolled against his chest, out completely. Grizzly carried her toward the open door, toward the light, toward warmth and safety, and the desperate hope that they had made it in time. Inside the Mountain Haven Motel, warmth existed. Not just temperature, but the idea of warmth, the memory of it, the promise that cold wasn't the only state of being. Grizzly carried Catherine through the door. The heat hit his face like a physical thing. It hurt. His frozen skin screamed at the sudden change. But it was good pain. Living pain. He laid Catherine on a couch near a heating vent, positioned Ely on her chest where her body heat and the vent's warmth could reach him. Then he stepped back and let his body sag against the wall. He had made it. They had all made it. Behind him, his brothers brought the children inside. Autumn walked on her own legs, but they shook with each step. Wyatt hung limp in Flint's arms. The twins came together, Ridge and Gunner, carrying them side by side so they could see each other. The old man stood in the center of the lobby, staring at the scene. 8 bikers covered in ice. 5 children blue-lipped and shaking. 1 unconscious mother. 1 baby who might already be gone. Axel moved immediately. His medic training took over everything else. He knelt beside Catherine and checked her pulse. Weak but present. He pulled back her eyelids, pupils responsive. He touched her neck, her wrists, her chest, taking vitals, assessing damage. Then he reached for Ely, lifted the baby gently. The tiny body was limp, pale, lips almost blue. Axel pressed 2 fingers against Eli's chest, waited. His face showed nothing. Professional, controlled. Then his shoulders relaxed, just slightly. He's alive, breathing, pulse is weak but there. Core temp is way too low. He needs warming, gradual, not too fast. The old man finally moved. He disappeared into a back room and returned with blankets. Thick, heavy, smelling of storage and dust, but clean. He threw them toward the couch. There's a heating vent over there, he said. His voice was gruff, uncertain. And another by the window. Get them near the heat. Grizzly looked at the old man. Really looked. Saw the way his hands shook slightly. The way his eyes kept moving from face to face, taking in the scene, processing. "Thank you," Grizzly said, "for opening your door." The old man shook his head. "Didn't have much choice, did I? Can't let kids freeze." "But you could have." Grizzly's voice was quiet, factual. "You could have stayed inside, pretended you didn't hear. Nobody would have blamed you." The old man's jaw worked. He looked at Catherine on the couch, at the children being wrapped in blankets, at the baby being positioned near the heating vent. "I would have blamed me," he said finally. Axel worked on Wyatt next. The boy was the most critical. No shivering meant his core temperature had dropped dangerously low. His body had stopped fighting the cold, was beginning to accept it. Axel wrapped him in 3 blankets, positioned him near the heating vent, not too close. Too much heat too fast could send his blood pressure crashing, could stop his heart. He activated chemical hand warmers, placed them under Wyatt's arms, against his sides, near his major blood vessels, trying to re-warm him from the inside out. "Come on, kid," Axel murmured. "Stay with us. You made it this far. Don't quit now." Wyatt's eyes stayed closed, his breathing shallow, but his chest moved. Steady, persistent, still fighting. The twins were cold but responsive. Crying. That was good. Crying meant awareness, meant their bodies hadn't shut down. Ridge and Gunner wrapped them in blankets and held them. Shared body heat, talked to them in low voices. "You're okay now. You're safe. We got you. Your mama's right there. Your brother and sister are here. Everyone made it. You're okay." Autumn sat on the edge of a chair. She was exhausted. Her body trembled, but her eyes stayed alert, watching her siblings, counting them, making sure everyone was present. Grizzly crossed to her, knelt down so he was at her eye level. "What's your name?" he asked. "Autumn." Her voice was small but steady. "Autumn, you did real good out there. Kept your family together. Stayed strong." That took courage. She looked at him. Really looked. Her eyes were old for 11. Too old. Like she had seen things children shouldn't see. "Are we really safe?" she asked. Grizzly nodded. "You're really safe. My name's Grizzly. These are my brothers. We're going to take care of you until help comes." When will help come? Grizzly didn't know. The storm was still raging outside. The roads were impassable. Ambulances couldn't move. Police couldn't respond. They were on their own until morning at least. "Soon," he said. He didn't lie exactly. Just didn't give details she didn't need. Autumn seemed to accept this. She turned her attention back to her siblings. Still counting, still watching. The old man returned with a pot of soup. Vegetable, canned but warm. He poured it into mugs and passed them around. The children took them with shaking hands, sipped carefully. The warmth traveled down their throats and into their stomachs and spread slowly outward. Grizzly took a mug but didn't drink. He watched Catherine instead. She hadn't stirred. Her breathing was shallow, her face pale, but the blue tint around her lips was fading. The warmth was working. Eli lay on her chest wrapped in blankets. His color was returning. Slowly, pink replacing the deathly pallor. His tiny fists moved, waved in the air, protesting, demanding, alive. Axel appeared beside Grizzly. He held a mug of coffee. Black, strong. He took a long drink before speaking. "That was the most insane thing we've ever done." Grizzly nodded. "Yeah, we could have died. All of us. Yeah, but we didn't. No, we didn't." They stood in silence, 2 men who had seen combat and loss and the worst humanity had to offer. 2 men who had just done something impossible and lived to process it. "Why'd you stop?" Axel asked. The question was quiet, genuine. "When you saw them on the road, why'd you stop?" Grizzly didn't answer right away. He stared at the children wrapped in blankets, at the mother sleeping on his couch, at the baby fighting to stay alive. "Because I couldn't save Scarlett," he said finally. "I was right there, close enough to see, not close enough to stop it. For 6 years I've been asking why I'm still here, why she's gone and I'm not." He turned to look at Axel. "Tonight I found out. I'm here to stop. Every time. For every family." Axel nodded slowly. He didn't argue, didn't offer platitudes, just accepted the truth of it. The old man approached them. He had been listening. His expression had softened. The suspicion was gone, replaced by something that looked like respect. "Name's Thaddeus Whitmore," he said. "Everyone calls me Tad. I've owned this place 40 years, seen plenty of travelers in trouble. Never seen anyone do what you just did." Grizzly shook his hand. The old man's grip was firm despite his age. "You got kids?" Tad asked. "Had a daughter." Past tense. Tad's face changed. Understanding flickered in his eyes. "I'm sorry. Me too." They stood together, two men bound by loss, by the people they couldn't save, by the desperate need to save someone. "She'd be proud of you tonight," Tad said quietly. "Your daughter. Whatever happened, she'd be proud of what you did here." Something shifted in Grizzly's chest. Not healing exactly. Healing would take years, maybe forever. But something settled, like a bone that had been broken finally set straight. He didn't cry, didn't speak, but he felt it. The first small moment in 6 years where the weight of Scarlett's death felt like something other than punishment. It felt like purpose. The night stretched long and cold beyond the motel walls. Inside, the children slept fitfully, wrapped in blankets, positioned near heating vents, their small bodies slowly warming, slowly coming back from the edge. The Iron Wolves took shifts without being asked. Two stayed awake at all times, watching, monitoring, keeping the fire in the wood stove fed and burning, keeping the children safe. Grizzly refused to sleep. He sat in a chair across from the couch where Catherine lay, watching her breathe, watching Eli's small chest rise and fall, making sure they both kept fighting. Tad brought him coffee, sat in the chair beside him without asking permission. "Can't sleep either," Grizzly asked. "Too old for sleeping through excitement. Plus my bed's cold. Wife died 15 years ago. Never got used to sleeping alone." They sat in comfortable silence. Two men who understood that some things didn't need words. Around 3 in the morning, Catherine stirred. Her eyes opened. Unfocused at first. Confused. She saw a ceiling she didn't recognize. Walls painted yellow. Men in leather jackets sitting nearby. Panic flooded her face. She tried to sit up. Grizzly was beside her before she could move. "Your children are safe," he said. His voice was low, gentle. "All 5, they're right here. You're safe." Catherine's eyes found his face. She stared at him. At this massive stranger who looked like every nightmare she'd been taught to fear. But his eyes were kind, tired, carrying their own weight. "Who are you?" she whispered. "My name's Declan. People call me Grizzly. We found you on the road." The memory came back. The walk, the cold, the moment her legs gave out. The voice saying, "Come with me." The arms catching her before she fell. "Why did you stop?" The question came out broken, raw. "Why did you help us?" Grizzly didn't know how to answer. The truth was too complicated, too painful, too wrapped up in a dead daughter and 6 years of guilt. "Because you needed help," he said simply. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. The first tears she had let herself cry since the car died. Since she realized they might die on that road. Since she accepted that she couldn't protect her children from the cold, or the storm, or the terrible randomness of the world. She cried. And Grizzly sat beside her. He didn't offer empty comfort. Didn't tell her everything would be okay. He just stayed. Present. Solid. A wall between her and the storm still raging outside. Across the room, Autumn watched. She couldn't sleep either. She saw this giant biker sitting with her mother. Saw the way he didn't touch her or crowd her. Just gave her space to break down. To be weak. Autumn had been strong for 8 months, since her father died. Since she became the second adult in a household that needed 2. She was tired of being strong. But watching this stranger be strong for them helped somehow. Made the burden feel lighter. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, she slept without nightmares. Dawn came slowly. The storm broke around 6:30. The wind died. The snow stopped falling. The world outside the motel emerged from white chaos into white stillness. Grizzly stood at the window, watched the sun rise over mountains buried in 3 feet of fresh snow. The beauty of it felt obscene after the violence of the night before. Behind him, the children began to wake, one by one, stretching, confused, then remembering where they were and why. Eli cried, a strong cry, loud, demanding. the sound of a baby who had fought death and won and was now furious about being hungry. Catherine woke to the sound. She pulled him to her chest, began to nurse him. Her hands shook, but she managed, life continuing despite everything. At 7:14, the sound of an engine cut through the morning silence. Grizzly looked out the window. An ambulance, red and white, moving slowly down the freshly plowed road. Help had arrived. Two paramedics entered the motel, a man and a woman. Both young, both professional. They saw the bikers first, saw the leather and patches. Their postures shifted, became wary. Then they saw the children, saw Catherine nursing her baby, saw the scene for what it was. The female paramedic approached Catherine, started asking questions, taking vitals, checking the children one by one. The male paramedic pulled out a radio, called in the report, 5 pediatric patients, 1 adult female, all hypothermic, all stable, request transport to Clearwater Regional. While he talked, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into the parking lot. The door opened. A man in a tan uniform stepped out, sheriff's badge on his chest, hand resting casually near his belt, ready for trouble. He walked into the motel, saw the bikers. His expression hardened. Tad intercepted him before he could speak. "Those men saved that family," Tad said. His voice carried across the room. "Found them freezing on the highway. Carried 5 kids through a blizzard on motorcycles. Kept them alive all night." The sheriff's expression changed, slowly. The suspicion drained away, replaced by something that looked like shame. He approached Grizzly, extended his hand. "Name's Clayton Marsh. I owe you an apology. I had you figured wrong." Grizzly shook his hand. "Most people do. We're used to it." The paramedics finished their examination. The female approached Catherine. "You and the baby need hospital observation. 24 hours at least. Your other children are stable. No frostbite, no permanent damage. They're miracle survivors." Catherine looked at Grizzly, at the man who had carried her through hell, who had held her baby against his chest for 22 minutes of white death, who had refused to let them die. "Thank you," she whispered. The words felt inadequate, insufficient, but they were all she had. Grizzly nodded. "Take care of them. That's thanks enough." The children were loaded into the ambulance. Catherine carried Eli. The twins held hands. Wyatt walked on his own legs, but stayed close to his mother. Autumn was the last to leave. She stopped at the door, turned back, looked at Grizzly across the room. Then she ran, across the lobby, arms out. She crashed into him, wrapped her arms around his waist, held on tight. Grizzly froze. His arms hung at his sides. He didn't know what to do, didn't know if he was allowed to touch her, if it was appropriate, if her voice cut through his thoughts. Quiet meant only for him. "You're somebody's angel today." The words hit him like a fist to the chest. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel. Slowly he placed his hands on her back, held her, this child who was not his daughter, but who needed him anyway. This moment that would not bring Scarlett back, but might mean something anyway. Autumn pulled away, ran back to the ambulance without looking back. The doors closed. The vehicle pulled away, taking Catherine and her 5 children toward safety, toward recovery, toward a future they almost didn't have. Grizzly stood in the parking lot, watching them go. The other bikers gathered around him. His brothers. 8 men who had risked everything for strangers, who had ridden through hell because it was the right thing to do. Axel placed a hand on Grizzly's shoulder. "Scarlett would be proud," he said quietly. Grizzly nodded, his throat too tight to speak. For the first time in 6 years, he believed it might be true. 2 weeks passed before Catherine could find the words. She sat at her sister Josephine's kitchen table in Billings. The house was small but warm. 2 bedrooms upstairs where 5 children slept on mattresses and sleeping bags. A fold-out couch in the living room where Catherine tried to sleep and mostly failed. The job interview had been rescheduled. Catherine had arrived 3 days late with frostbite scars on her fingers, in a story the hiring manager didn't quite believe until she saw the news coverage. She got the position anyway. Medical office manager, full-time, benefits that would cover the children, a paycheck that arrived on schedule instead of running out before the month did. She had started work a week ago. The routine helped, kept her hands busy, kept her mind from replaying those hours on the highway. The cold, the moment her legs gave out, the sound of motorcycle engines cutting through the storm. But at night, when the children were asleep and the house went quiet, the memories came back. Not the terror. That had faded. But the other part. The moment a stranger said, "Come with me." The feeling of arms catching her before she fell. The steady heartbeat against her back during that impossible ride. She couldn't stop thinking about the bikers. About the men who looked like nightmares but acted like angels. About the one called Grizzly who had held her baby against his chest and refused to let him die. She didn't know their last names. Didn't know where they lived exactly. Didn't know anything except they called themselves Iron Wolves and they had saved her family when no one else could. Catherine opened her laptop, searched Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club Montana. The website was simple. Photos of charity rides, veterans escorted to funerals, toys delivered to foster homes, a contact page with an address in Clearwater. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she opened a blank document and started typing. Dear Mr. McAllister, she had learned his real name from Sheriff Marsh. Declan McAllister, called Grizzly by his brothers, owned a motorcycle repair shop in Clearwater. I don't know how to thank someone who gave me back my life. The words came slowly at first, then faster. Everything she had been holding for 2 weeks spilled onto the page. The gratitude, the confusion, the desperate need to understand why he had stopped when the world taught people to drive past. She wrote about the children, about Autumn who asked about the bikers every night before bed, about Wyatt who had started speaking again in small, careful sentences, about the twins who now believed heroes wore leather and rode motorcycles, about baby Eli who was alive because a stranger carried him through hell. She wrote about herself, about the 8 months since Robert died, about drowning in bills and grief and the terrible weight of being alone with 5 children and no way forward, about the China that might save them, about the storm that almost took everything. She wrote about the moment on the highway, about her legs giving out, about seeing the bikers approach and feeling nothing but terror until the words "come with me" changed everything. I want my children to see you again, she wrote. I want them to thank you properly. I want them to understand that strangers can be angels, that the scariest moments sometimes lead to the greatest gifts. I want them to never forget what you did for us. She gave her phone number, her address in Billings, an open invitation to visit whenever he wanted. She printed the letter, folded it, addressed an envelope, drove to the post office on her lunch break and mailed it before she could change her mind. Then she waited. The letter arrived at Grizzly's shop on a Tuesday afternoon. He was under a Harley Softail when Ridge brought it in, hands covered in grease, mind focused on a carburetor that wouldn't cooperate. Ridge dropped the envelope on the workbench without comment. Grizzly saw the return address. Billings, Catherine Brennan. His hands stopped moving. He climbed out from under the bike, wiped his hands on a rag that just spread the grease around, stared at the envelope like it might explode. Ridge watched from the doorway. You gonna open it eventually? She probably just wants to say thanks. Probably. So open it. Grizzly picked up the envelope, turned it over, set it back down. He wasn't used to gratitude. Wasn't used to anyone wanting to see him again after the crisis passed. Most people preferred to forget, to move on, to pretend the scary moment never happened. He left the envelope on the workbench and went back to work, but his eyes kept drifting to it, the white paper, the careful handwriting, the weight of words he hadn't read yet. That evening after the shop closed, he finally opened it. Read it once, then again, then a third time. The words felt impossible, like they were meant for someone else, some better version of himself that didn't exist. She wanted to see him, wanted her children to see him, wanted to say thank you in person. Grizzly didn't know how to respond, didn't know what to say. He had done what needed doing, nothing more. Nothing that required thanks or recognition or follow-up. But her words stayed with him. I want them to never forget what you did for us. He thought about Scarlett, about the ways he had tried to keep her memory alive. Photos on the wall, her room unchanged. The calendar marked every year with the day she died. But memory built on death felt different than memory built on life, than teaching children that someone stopped, that someone cared, that the world held more good than they had been taught to expect. Grizzly pulled out his phone, called Axel. I got a letter from the woman. Catherine. Yeah, she wants to visit, wants the kids to thank us. That's good. Is it? Axel was quiet for a moment. Then, you saved her family, Grizz. She's grateful. Let her be grateful. Let those kids see you in daylight. Let them know the monsters from their nightmares turned out to be something else. Grizzly heard the truth in it. But something else was there too. Tomorrow was April 20th, the spring cookout, the club's biggest charity event of the year. Foster kids and community families and the whole town showing up. It was also the day Scarlett died. Different year, same date, April 20th, the day the drunk driver crossed the median and took his daughter and his future and left him with nothing but questions. For 6 years, Grizzly had avoided the cookout, found reasons to be elsewhere. Too much work, a ride that needed to happen. Anything to escape the laughter of children on a day that felt like morning. But this year felt different. This year he could choose to show up, to face the date, to transform it from an anniversary of death into something else. He called Catherine that night. Her voice was careful, uncertain, like she expected him to say no. There's a cookout at our clubhouse, Grizzly said. April 20th, it's for foster kids and families in the community. Big event, lots of people. You and your kids are invited if you want to come. Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then, we'll be there. April 20th arrived with clear skies and warm sun. The Iron Wolves clubhouse sat at the end of a gravel road outside Clearwater, a converted barn with picnic tables scattered across the grass. Motorcycles lined up in neat rows, American flags hanging from the rafters. By noon, the place was packed. Foster kids running everywhere, families gathering around food tables. Local police officers mixing with bikers like the leather and the badges belonged in the same space. Grizzly stood near the grill, watching, not participating, just present. Axel appeared beside him with a plate of burgers. You gonna stand there all day or help cook? I'm helping. Standing isn't helping. I'm supervising. Axel grunted. He flipped a burger with more force than necessary. Your supervising looks a lot like hiding. I'm not hiding. You've been standing in the same spot for 20 minutes. That's hiding. Grizzly didn't argue. Axel was right. He was hiding. From the laughter, from the children playing, from the memory of Scarlett at events like this. Running, smiling, alive. But he was here. That counted for something. At 1:15, a rental car pulled into the parking lot. Newer model, reliable. Catherine climbed out of the driver's seat. Grizzly saw her and stopped breathing. She looked different in daylight. Stronger. Her face had color. Her hair was pulled back. She wore jeans and a sweater that fit properly, not bundled in blankets in terror. The passenger door opened. Autumn climbed out. Then Wyatt. Then the twins tumbling out of the back seat like puppies. Catherine pulled baby Eli from his car seat. 7 months old now, bigger than the frozen infant Grizzly had carried against his chest. Autumn scanned the crowd. Her eyes found Grizzly across the parking lot. She ran, not a child's run, not playful or casual. She ran like someone who had been waiting weeks for this moment. Like seeing him again meant proving it was real. That the night in the storm wasn't a fever dream. That the angels in leather actually existed. She crashed into him, arms around his waist, face pressed against his leather vest, holding on like he might disappear if she let go. Grizzly's arms hung at his sides for a heartbeat. Then slowly, carefully, he wrapped them around her shoulders, held her the way he used to hold Scarlett, like she was precious, like she mattered. He closed his eyes. For one moment, just one, he let himself feel it. The weight of a child who trusted him. The second chance he never thought he'd get. The purpose that had been missing for 6 years suddenly made clear. When Autumn pulled back, her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. A real smile. Not the careful mask she had worn on the highway. I told them you were real, she said. My friends at school, they didn't believe me. Said nobody does stuff like that anymore. But you did. You're real. Grizzly's throat was too tight to speak. He just nodded. Catherine approached with the other children. She stopped a few feet away, giving him space, not crowding. Thank you for inviting us, she said. Thank you for coming. They stood in awkward silence, two people bound by catastrophe, by the night that almost took everything, by the words "come with me" that changed the trajectory of 6 lives. Catherine held out baby Eli. He's bigger now. Healthier. The doctor said he wouldn't have made it another 10 minutes. You saved him. Grizzly looked at the baby, at the alert eyes and the grabbing hands, and the solid weight of a child who was supposed to die but didn't. He reached out, let Eli grab his finger. The tiny fist squeezed with surprising strength. He's a fighter, Grizzly said. He learned from the best. The afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Autumn attached herself to Axel at the grill. He showed her how to flip burgers, how to test for doneness, how to manage heat and timing. She concentrated with fierce attention. Like learning to grill was the most important skill in the world. Wyatt found his way to a parked motorcycle. Sterling stood beside him, explaining the controls. Wyatt listened without speaking much, but his eyes were alive, interested, present in a way Catherine hadn't seen since Robert died. The twins discovered the face painting station. A massive biker named Gunner sat with a palette of colors and infinite patience. Harper wanted a flower. Quinn wanted a dragon. He gave them both, and they ran off to show anyone who would look. Catherine stood with Grizzly near the edge of the gathering, watching her children exist in a space where they felt safe, where strangers were kind, where the world made sense again. Sheriff Marsh approached with a manila envelope. He shook Grizzly's hand, then Catherine's. This is a donation for the Iron Wolves foster program, he said. County voted to increase funding. What you did on that highway, people noticed. Changed some minds about who the good guys are. Grizzly took the envelope without opening it. Appreciate it. You earned it. A woman with a camera appeared, press badge hanging around her neck. Rebecca Calloway, Clearwater Herald. She had been covering the event, taking photos of children and bikers and the strange, beautiful mixing of worlds that shouldn't fit but did. Mr. McAllister, could I ask you some questions about the rescue? Grizzly shook his head. Nothing to tell. We saw people in trouble. We helped. That's all. Catherine stepped forward. Her voice was stronger than it had been. Clearer. That's not all. You saved my family. You saved my children's lives. That deserves to be told. She turned to her children, called them over. All five gathered around their mother like ducklings. I want a photo, Catherine said, for my kids, so they never forget. Grizzly started to refuse. The camera, the attention, the way his face would be attached to this story forever. But then he looked at Autumn, at the hope in her eyes, the need to capture this moment, to prove it happened. He couldn't say no. They gathered together, Catherine and her 5 children in front, Grizzly standing behind them, his hands resting on Autumn's and Wyatt's shoulders. A connection, a family forged not by blood but by the choice to stop, to help, to fight for strangers because it was right. The camera flashed. Rebecca lowered it, smiled. Perfect. This is going to make a hell of a story. She was right. But none of them knew how much of a story yet, how far it would spread, how many lives it would touch, how 2 words in a blizzard would become a movement that changed everything. The photograph appeared in the Clearwater Herald on Wednesday morning. Caption, family found in the storm. The image showed Catherine Brennan and her 5 children. Behind them stood Declan Grizzly McAllister, his massive frame, his weathered face, his hands on the shoulders of 2 children who were alive because he refused to drive past. The story ran beneath it. Rebecca Calloway's words painting the picture of that night. The broken car, the desperate walk, the moment a widow's legs gave out and a biker said, "Come with me." The impossible ride through 22 minutes of white death. The 8 men who risked everything for strangers. By Thursday, the regional papers picked it up. By Friday, the state news ran the story. By Saturday, it had crossed state lines. By Monday, it went viral. Someone posted it on social media with a caption about judging books by their covers. Someone else shared it with a message about the goodness that still existed in the world. Someone else wrote a thread about the bikers they had feared their whole life until they read this story and realized fear and danger weren't the same thing. The comments piled up. Thousands, then tens of thousands. People sharing their own stories. Times they were helped by strangers. Times they helped someone else. Times the world surprised them with kindness when they expected cruelty. The letters started arriving at the Iron Wolves clubhouse by Tuesday. First a few, then dozens, then so many that Ridge had to bring them in by the boxful. Parents writing to say their children looked at bikers differently now. Teachers asking if the club would speak at schools about community service. Other motorcycle clubs reaching out to share their own rescue stories. Ones that never made the papers because nobody expected bikers to be heroes. A children's hospital in Seattle sent an invitation. They wanted the Iron Wolves to lead their annual charity ride. The event coordinator wrote that 3 other clubs had signed up after seeing the story. The ride would be the biggest in the hospital's history. Grizzly sat in his office surrounded by envelopes. He didn't know what to do with any of it, didn't know how to respond. This wasn't why he stopped that night. He didn't stop for recognition or praise or to change anyone's mind about bikers. He stopped because children were dying and he had a chance to save them. That should be the end of it, but the world had other ideas. Axel found him there, staring at the pile of mail like it was evidence of a crime he hadn't committed. "You gonna answer those?" Axel asked. "Don't know what to say. Say thank you. Say we were doing our job. Say whatever you want, but don't ignore them." "Why not?" "Because these letters are not about you. They're about what you represent. Hope. The idea that good people still exist. That you can trust strangers sometimes. That the scariest looking guy might be the safest person in the room." Axel picked up one of the letters. "Read it aloud." "My daughter was terrified of motorcycles. Crossed the street when she saw bikers. Then she read about you. Now she waves at them. Asks me if they're good guys like the ones who saved that family. You changed how she sees the world." He set the letter down. "That's why you answer. Not for you. For every kid who might get saved because someone read this story and decided to stop instead of driving past." Grizzly was quiet for a long time. Then he reached for the first envelope. He started reading, then writing back. Short responses, nothing elaborate. Just acknowledging that he saw them, that their words mattered, that the ripple was bigger than one night on a frozen highway. But not everyone was happy about the attention. On Thursday night, someone spray painted the clubhouse wall. Red letters 6 feet high. Fake angels. Grizzly stood in the parking lot staring at it. He knew who did it. The Devil's Reapers. A 1%er club 2 counties over. Real outlaws. Real criminals. The kind that made people lock their doors and cross streets and teach their children to run. The kind that gave all bikers a bad reputation. The Iron Wolves' new image threatened that, challenged the stereotype, made it harder for the Reapers to hide among assumptions. The club president showed up Friday afternoon. Colt Brennan, no relation to Catherine despite the shared name. He parked his bike in front of Grizzly's shop, waited. Grizzly walked out. They stood facing each other. 2 men, 2 very different versions of what it meant to ride. "You're making us all look soft," Colt said. His voice was flat, factual, playing hero for the cameras, saving families. "Next, you'll be joining the PTA and hosting bake sales. We saved lives. That's not soft, that's necessary." Colt spat on the ground. "You're changing what people think about bikers, making them comfortable, making them trust. That's dangerous for the rest of us." "Good. Maybe the rest of you should try being trustworthy." Colt's expression hardened. "This isn't over. People need to remember what bikers really are. We'll remind them." He rode off, leaving the threat hanging in the air like smoke. Grizzly called Sheriff Marsh, reported the vandalism. The threat. Marsh promised to increase patrols, to keep an eye on the Reapers. But they both knew there was only so much the law could do until something actually happened. The Iron Wolves increased their own vigilance. Never rode alone. Always watched their backs. Always expected trouble. But they didn't stop their community work. Didn't retreat into the shadows. Didn't let fear win. Catherine saw the news about the vandalism, the threats, the backlash against the men who had saved her family. She couldn't let it stand. She called Rebecca Calloway, asked for a meeting. The journalist agreed immediately. They met at a coffee shop in Billings. Catherine brought a folder full of papers, doctor's reports, hypothermia recovery documentation, photos of her children's frostbite scars that had since healed. Evidence. "I want to tell my side," Catherine said. "The whole story, not just what happened that night, but what's happened since, the program I'm building, the kids I'm teaching, the ripple." Rebecca pulled out her recorder. "I'm listening." Catherine talked for 2 hours. about Robert's death, about the 8 months of drowning, about the decision to drive through a storm because staying meant losing everything, about the walk that almost killed them, about the moment her legs gave out and she saw motorcycles approaching and felt nothing but terror, about the voice that said, "Come with me," about the ride through hell, about waking up surrounded by strangers who looked dangerous but acted like angels, about the children who were alive because 8 men chose to stop. But she didn't stop there. She talked about what came after, about the nightmares, about the therapy, about learning to trust again after that night taught her everything she knew about trust was backwards. She talked about the idea that came to her 3 weeks after the rescue, about the children who needed to learn what she learned, that the scariest strangers could be the safest ones, that knowing the difference could save your life. She talked about starting a program. In Josephine's living room at first, just 8 kids from the neighborhood, teaching them emergency signals, how to identify safe adults, how to tell the difference between danger and fear, how to trust their instincts but not their assumptions, about how the program grew, how parents asked her to teach their kids, how schools invited her to speak, how the first curriculum took shape on paper napkins in late-night typing sessions after the children went to bed. She called it the Guardian Angels program. Because angels didn't always look like angels. Sometimes they wore leather. Sometimes they had beards and scars. Sometimes they said, "Come with me," and you had to choose between trust and death. I've taught 200 kids so far, Catherine said. In 6 months, 200 children who now know that strangers aren't automatically dangerous. That help can come from unexpected places. That the world is more good than they've been taught to fear. She pulled out another paper, a letter from a parent in Helena. Read it aloud. "My son was lost at a fair. He was 7, terrified, but he remembered what Mrs. Brennan taught him. He looked for someone in uniform or someone who looked like a parent with kids. He found a biker, a big, scary-looking guy covered in tattoos. My son walked up to him and said, 'I'm lost and I need help.' That biker stopped everything, helped him find security, stayed with him until we arrived. Because of Catherine's program, my son didn't run. He asked for help, from the exact kind of person I had taught him to fear." Rebecca's eyes were wet. "This is the story, not just the rescue, the legacy, what you built from that night." Catherine nodded, "And I need people to know. The Iron Wolves didn't just save us that night. They're still saving people. Every time someone stops because they read the story, every time a parent teaches their kid not to judge, every time trust wins over fear." The article ran the following Sunday. Front page, above the fold. Headline, "From Rescue to Revolution, How One Mother Turned Tragedy into a Movement." The story went deeper than the first article. Showed Catherine's program, the curriculum, the testimonials from parents and children, the measurable impact. The lives changed not just by rescue, but by the lesson it taught. And it showed the Iron Wolves' role in all of it, Famo, not as one-time heroes, but as the catalyst, the example. The proof that the world held more good than fear allowed people to see. The backlash from the Devil's Reapers intensified. Threats increased. Vandalism continued. But something else happened too. Sheriff Marsh called Grizzly on Tuesday morning. "I got a proposal. Partnership between my department and your club. Official. You become community liaisons. Escort vulnerable families during crises. Provide visible support at public events. Show people what good looks like." Grizzly was quiet. "That's not what we do. It's exactly what you do. You've been doing it for years. This just makes it official, gives you backup, legitimizes what you're already building." What about the Reapers? What about them? They're criminals hiding behind motorcycles. You're citizens riding motorcycles. There's a difference. Time people learn to see it. Grizzly talked to the club. Every member got a vote. 8 hands went up. Unanimous. They signed the partnership agreement on April 27th, 1 week after the cookout. The news covered it. The image of Sheriff Marsh shaking hands with Grizzly while the Iron Wolves stood behind them. The caption wrote itself, "Law and order ride together." The model spread, first to neighboring counties, then to other states. Us motorcycle clubs partnering with law enforcement, creating official roles for riders who wanted to help, who wanted to change the narrative, who wanted to prove that leather and badges belonged in the same sentence. What started in a blizzard on Highway 287 became a national conversation about trust and fear and the assumptions that kept people from seeing each other clearly. 5 years passed. Autumn Brennan stood at a podium in the Billings Community Center, 16 years old now, tall, confident, wearing the uniform of the Guardian Angels Youth Academy, a program that had grown from 8 kids in a living room to a state-certified curriculum taught in 43 schools across Montana. The ceremony was packed. Families filled every seat. Officials sat in the front row. Media cameras lined the back wall. This was the first official graduation, the first class to complete the full 3-year program and earn certification as youth safety instructors. Autumn was the valedictorian, not because of grades, because of leadership, because of the story she carried, because she was living proof that the program worked. Catherine sat in the third row. Next to her was Grizzly, then Axel, then Tad Whitmore from the Mountain Haven Motel, then Sheriff Marsh. The people who had built this impossible thing through choices made in crisis. Autumn adjusted the microphone, looked out at the crowd, found her mother's face, found Grizzly's, drew strength from both. She began to speak. 5 years ago, my family died on a highway. We just didn't know it yet. The room went silent. Our car broke down. My mother decided to walk. 5 miles to a rest stop. That's what the sign said. 5 miles. We could make it. But the sign was wrong, and the storm came early, and my mother's legs gave out after 2 hours of walking through snow that came sideways. That attacked. That wanted us dead. I watched her stop moving, watched her just stand there with my baby brother against her chest, watched my siblings turn blue, watched the world disappear into white. I knew we were dying. I was 11 years old and I knew. Autumn paused, let the weight settle. Then I saw headlights through the snow coming toward us, and I was more terrified of those headlights than I was of freezing to death, because they were bikers. 8 motorcycles, 8 men in leather. 8 people my mother had taught me to fear my entire life. She looked directly at Grizzly. One of them walked toward us. He was huge, scarred, exactly what every nightmare is made of. My mother saw him coming and her body gave up, just quit, fell forward. And he caught here. His name is Declan McAllister. We call him Grizzly. On the worst night of my life, he said 2 words that changed everything. Come with me. And my mother had to choose. Trust the monster or let her children die. Those were her options. Trust or death. She chose trust. Autumn's voice grew stronger. That choice saved our lives. All 5 of us. But it did more than that. It taught us something the world doesn't want you to know. That the scariest people can be the safest ones. That strangers aren't automatically dangerous. That help comes from unexpected places if you're brave enough to accept it. That's what this program teaches. Not fear, trust. The right kind of trust. The kind that saves lives. She pulled out a paper. Statistics, numbers, evidence. In 5 years, the Guardian Angels program has trained 3,412 children. We've documented 47 cases where that training saved a child's life. 47 kids who were lost or hurt or in danger, who used what we taught them, who asked a stranger for help, who didn't run from the scary-looking person, but evaluated and chose wisely. 47 lives saved because one night 8 bikers stopped instead of driving past, because my mother chose trust over fear, because someone decided to build a program that teaches others to do the same. The room erupted in applause. Autumn waited for it to quiet. But I'm not the one who built this. She looked at Catherine. My mother is. Catherine Brennan took a shaking breath. She hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared. Autumn was supposed to give her speech and sit down. That was the plan, but Autumn kept talking. Mom, will you come up here? Catherine shook her head, mouthed no. The crowd started clapping, encouraging, insisting. Catherine stood on legs that felt like they might give out, like that night on the highway, like the moment before Grizzly caught her. She walked to the podium. Autumn stepped aside but stayed close. Catherine looked at the crowd, at the faces watching, waiting, expecting words she hadn't prepared. She spoke. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere honest. For 8 months after my husband died, I was drowning. Bills I couldn't pay, children I couldn't feed. a future that looked like nothing but failure. I had one chance, one job interview, one drive through a storm that the weather said would hold off until tomorrow. But the weather lied, and my car died, and I made a choice to walk that almost killed us all. Her voice cracked. She pushed through it. When my legs gave out, I thought that was it. The end. We would freeze standing up. My children would die because I made a bad choice, because I gambled and lost. But then I heard engines, and I saw lights, and I felt more fear in that moment than I had felt watching my children turn blue, because those lights belonged to bikers, to men I had been taught my whole life to fear, to avoid, and to run from. She looked at Grizzly. Then one of them said, "Come with me." And I fell, and he caught me. Him and his brothers. They caught all of us, carried us through 22 minutes of hell on motorcycles, risked their lives for strangers, because they could, because it was right. She turned back to the crowd. This program exists because I learned something that night. I learned that I had been teaching my children wrong, that fear and safety aren't the same thing, that the people who look dangerous are sometimes the safest ones, that trust is a skill you can teach, a skill that saves lives. Catherine pulled out her own paper, her own statistics, her own proof. 47 children alive today because of what we teach them. 47 families that didn't have to bury their kids. 47 moments where trust won over fear and someone got to come home. Every single one of those 47 is alive because 8 men on motorcycles decided to stop that night, because they saw people in trouble and helped, because they were brave enough to look like monsters and act like angels anyway. Her voice rose, stronger now, certain. So when people ask me why I do this, I tell them the truth. I do it because someone did it for me, because I was saved by the people I feared most, because I want every child to know what my children know, that angels don't always look like angels, that help comes from unexpected places, that the scariest stranger might be the safest person in the room if you know how to look, if you're brave enough to trust. The crowd stood. Applause filled the room. Kept going, wouldn't stop. Catherine stepped back from the podium. Autumn grabbed her hand, squeezed. They stood together, mother and daughter, survivor and teacher, the woman who chose trust and the girl who learned to teach it. Grizzly watched from his seat. His throat was tight, his eyes were burning. For 6 years after Scarlett died, he had wondered why he was still alive, why she was gone and he remained. Now he knew. He was here for this, to stop on a highway, to say, "Come with me," to catch a falling woman and her dying baby, to become the example that proved strangers could be angels, to give meaning to his daughter's death by saving other daughters, other families, other futures. Scarlett would be proud. He finally believed that completely. That evening, the celebration moved to the Iron Wolves clubhouse, the same location as 5 years ago, the same warm weather, but everything else had changed. The parking lot was full, not just motorcycles, cars too, families, officials, community members. The line between biker and civilian had blurred until it barely existed. Catherine's 5 children ran across the grass. Autumn helped Axel at the grill, same position as 5 years ago, but now she wore an instructor badge. Now she taught others what he had taught her. Wyatt stood by a motorcycle talking to Sterling, 14 years old now, loud, confident, a public speaker who told his story at schools, who said, "Don't give up, help is coming even when you can't see it," who had found his voice after 2 years of silence. Harper and Quinn were 11, training to be junior instructors, teaching younger kids the same lessons their mother had taught them, the same trust that saved their lives. Eli was 5 years old. He wore a tiny leather jacket that Axel had given him. He called Grizzly Uncle Bear. He didn't remember the night he almost died, but he knew the story, knew he was alive because strangers stopped. Catherine found Grizzly by the fence, watching the gathering, the community they had built, the ripple that had spread further than either of them could have imagined. She stood beside him, comfortable silence between them. 5 years of friendship built on the foundation of crisis. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for stopping, for saying, 'Come with me,' for refusing to let us die, for becoming the example I needed to build this." Grizzly shook his head. "You built this. I just stopped." Stopping is everything. Stopping is what saved us. Stopping is what 47 other families needed someone to do. You taught people that stopping matters. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you gave me something that night too. What purpose? For 8 months I was drowning, just trying to survive, just getting through days without falling apart. Then you saved us. And I realized survival isn't enough. You have to do something with it. You have to pass it forward. Grizzly understood that, had lived it. For 6 years after Scarlett died, he had been surviving, just existing, going through motions. Then Catherine and her children appeared on a frozen highway and gave him a reason to stop surviving and start living. We saved each other, he said. Catherine smiled. Yeah, we did. Tad Whitmore joined them. The old motel owner moved slower now. His hair was completely white. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes were sharp and his presence solid. He had told his story 3 years ago, at a town hall about the partnership program, about his daughter Magnolia who had died in a similar storm 20 years earlier, about opening the Mountain Haven Motel to keep watch, to make sure no one else died on that road if he could prevent it, about how Grizzly had given him a chance to help, to save what he couldn't save before, to honor his daughter by protecting other daughters. Good crowd tonight, Tad said. His voice was gravelly, warm. Getting bigger every year, Catherine replied. That's how it should be. Good spreads if you let it. They stood together, 3 people bound by loss, by the choice to stop, by the decision to build something from catastrophe. Sheriff Marsh approached, retired now but still involved, still pushing the partnership program to expand, still believing that law and community were stronger together than apart. Got news, he said. The partnership model just got approved in California. 3 counties signed on. That makes 14 states now. Catherine's eyes widened. 14 states with official partnerships between law enforcement and motorcycle clubs. All because of what started here. All because people saw the story and decided trust was worth the risk. The Devil's Reapers had faded over the years. Some members arrested, others moved on. The clubs still existed somewhere, but the threat had diminished. Turned out proving stereotypes wrong was more powerful than reinforcing them. Music started playing from speakers mounted on the barn. Country songs mixed with classic rock. Children ran around playing tag. Adults gathered around picnic tables telling stories. Autumn appeared with Eli on her shoulders. The 5-year-old's hands gripped her forehead. His voice shouted at everything he saw. Just like Scarlett used to do at parades. Just like Grizzly remembered his daughter before the world took her. But this wasn't Scarlett. This was Eli. A different child, a different future. One that existed because Grizzly chose to stop. Uncle Bear, Eli shouted, "Look how tall I am." Grizzly smiled, a real smile. Not forced, not painful, just genuine. "Pretty tall kid. You might be taller than me soon." Eli giggled. "Nobody's taller than you. Just wait, you'll get there." Autumn lowered Eli to the ground. The boy ran off to join the other kids. Autumn stood beside Grizzly, looking at the gathering, the community, the proof that stopping mattered. "You know what the best part is?" she asked. "What's that?" "None of this would exist if you had kept driving, if you had looked at us on that road and thought, it's not my problem. If you had chosen safety over risk. Every life saved, every kid taught, every family that didn't have to bury someone, all of it exists because you stopped." Grizzly was quiet for a long moment. "Then your mother stopped too. She stopped running, stopped drowning, stopped surviving. She turned that night into this. That's harder than what I did." Autumn nodded. "Maybe you both stopped. Maybe that's the lesson. That stopping is a choice, that helping is a choice, that building something good from something terrible is always a choice. And you guys chose right." The sun set over the Montana mountains. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. The kind of sunset that makes people believe the world is more beautiful than cruel. Catherine walked toward them, her 4 other children following behind. Wyatt and Harper and Quinn and Eli, all alive, all thriving, all proof that strangers could be angels if you were brave enough to trust them. She reached Grizzly, looked up at him, this giant man who had saved her family and then became part of it, who showed up every year, who never missed a birthday or a graduation or a moment that mattered, who had lost his own daughter but found purpose in protecting other daughters. "I need to tell you something," Catherine said. Her voice was thick. "I've been thinking about this for 5 years, trying to find the right words, but there aren't right words for this." She took a breath. "You saved my children's lives that night, but you did something else too. You gave me mine back. For 8 months I was dead, just a body going through motions, waiting for the end. Then you stopped. You said, 'Come with me.' You caught me when I fell, and I started living again. Not just surviving, living, building, teaching. Making Robert's death and our suffering means something." Tears ran down her face. She didn't wipe them away. "So thank you for stopping, for the 47 lives saved by the program, for the 14 states with partnerships, for every child who learned to trust instead of fear, for all of it. But mostly thank you for showing me that the worst moment of my life could become the best thing I ever did. That catastrophe could become catalyst. That falling could become flying if someone was there to catch you." Grizzly pulled her into a hug. Careful, gentle, the way he used to hug his daughter, the way he now hugged all 5 of Catherine's children when they needed it. "You gave me something too," he said quietly. "You gave me a reason to still be here, to keep going, to stop wondering why I survived when Scarlett didn't. I'm here to stop. Every time. For every family. That's why I'm still alive, and I'm okay with that now." They held each other. Two people who had saved each other without meaning to, who had turned tragedy into purpose, who had proved that the darkest moments could lead to the brightest futures. The party continued around them. Children laughed. Music played. Families gathered. The Iron Wolves mixed with civilians, and nobody could tell the difference anymore. The leather and the badges belonged together. The scary and the safe had merged into something new, something better. Catherine pulled back, looked at Grizzly, at Autumn, at her other children, at the community filling the clubhouse. She thought about that night 5 years ago, about the cold and the fear and the moment her legs gave out, about the voice that said, "Come with me," about the choice to trust when every instinct screamed to run. She thought about the 47 children alive because she taught them what she learned. The thousands more who would learn it, the ripples spreading outward in circles nobody could measure. She thought about Robert, about how he used to say family wasn't just blood. Family was anyone who showed up when you needed them. These people were her family now. The bikers who stopped, the sheriff who believed, the old motel owner who kept watch, the community that learned to see clearly. All of it built on 2 words in a blizzard: "Come with me." The simplest invitation, the bravest choice, the beginning of everything. Catherine walked toward her children, toward the life they were building, toward the future they almost didn't have. Behind her, Grizzly watched. His chest felt full, not heavy with grief anymore, full with purpose, with meaning, with the knowledge that Scarlett's death had not been meaningless, that his survival had not been punishment. He was here to stop, to catch the falling, to say, "Come with me," when people needed to hear it most. That was enough. That was everything. The stars came out over Montana. The same stars that had watched a family nearly die 5 years ago. The same stars that now watch them live. Thrive. Teach others to thrive. The night grew cool, but the clubhouse stayed warm. The gathering continued. The stories flowed. The community held together by the simple truth that stopping matters, that help comes from unexpected places, that the scariest strangers can be the safest ones if you're brave enough to see them clearly. And somewhere in the mountains on Highway 287, fresh snow began to fall. Gentle this time, not attacking, just falling the way snow should fall. Peaceful, beautiful, covering the road where everything changed, where a widow's legs gave out and a biker said, "Come with me," and 6 lives were saved, and 47 more after that, and thousands more to come. Where angels wore leather and rode motorcycles and proved that the world held more good than fear allowed people to see. Where the story began, that taught everyone watching when someone says, "Come with me through a storm," sometimes you have to trust the stranger, because that stranger might be the angel you needed all along. And that lesson passed forward through Catherine's program and the Iron Wolves example, and the ripple spreading across 14 states would keep saving lives long after everyone involved was gone. That was the legacy. That was the answer to why Grizzly survived when Scarlett didn't. That was the meaning Catherine built from catastrophe. That was everything.